Hey, welcome, modders and map makers. Mappers. There we go. Today we're going to be talking about zoning your map. These are going to be really important things that we're going to do because this is effectively what's going to create foraging zones and loot respawn zones, which is effectively what gives your map a lot of functionality. So let's get started. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to go ahead and open up here your tiled map. But we want to go ahead and do that inside the TMX file, but we want to do it inside of the world editor. So here we are. This is cell 628. This is what we've been working with, and we're going to go ahead and open this up. Once we have this going, we're going to effectively create objects. There's going to be this tool here that says create objects. Technically all 4 of these tools are going to create objects. These tools, the objects that we're going to create, the type of object or the object group is going to tell the program or the game, hey, this is a foraging zone, or, this is a loot respawn zone, or this is a, car spawn zone. And those group objects are already predefined. We can take a quick peek at those if I go ahead and make this a little bigger right here. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and shrink these for the sake of having visuals. So when I select, by the way, any of these will automatically jump to that level, so level 0. So room tone, mannequin, water zone, water flow, farmland, farm, trailer park, vegetation, which is misspelled, deep forest, nab, forest, town zone, and parking stalls. These are the object groups. And these are effectively what are going to tell the game whether it's a foraging zone or whether it's a car spawn or something to that effect. Cool. So let's start with foraging because that's usually the easiest. So what we want to do is we want to select some type of foraging zone. The foraging zones, I believe, are going to be farmland, farm, trailer park, vegetation. No, not vegetation, excuse me. Farmland, farm, trailer park, deep forest, forest, and town zones. Those are our foraging zones. They are also loot respawn zones. I believe town zone and trailer park are like loot respawn zones. This is what tells it, hey, we're inside of a town. So if I do a town zone and then I create an object and I highlight an area, this tells the game all buildings and rooms that are inside of there are considered a town. So when you walk around foraging in this area, you will find things in your foraging that you would normally find in towns. If you go over here and you select, let's say, the forest as opposed to deep forest, and you create an object, this is going to tell the game, hey, whenever a player forages around these areas, these are going to be forest zones, right? And deep forest will be the same. Hey, when a player forages over here, these are going to be the deep forests of this map. Now, I can draw squares like this. This is usually the fastest way to do it. You can also use these tools in order to create object polygons and polylines. Now, and you can edit the polylines. I'm not exactly sure what they are. I'll be completely honest with you. It's very possible that just maybe the lines are what affect it. So if the player's inside of the lines, like literally on the line, that might affect it. But the area inside is not filled. I'm not sure what the polylines are. If someone knows, please drop it in the comments below. Educate me. The one that I use is this one, the create object polygon. So effectively, this allows me to select multiple points, and anything within that area, once I close it back up, becomes a zone so that I'm not restricted to just making squares. In essence, if I wanted this whole forest area, instead of creating a bunch of objects, I can simply create this, select this create object polygon, start at the edge, and then very carefully, or not, select all of the areas that I want to be considered deep forest, and then go ahead, once I'm done selecting them, connect them together. Boom. And now all of that is deep forest. Now this is peeking a little over the map. I can simply go to my edit object points, zoom in a little bit, And then by selecting that, I can move it over to the proper area. This looks like it's a little lifted, so let me go ahead and move this. Boom. So now with that, this is now a deep forest. Control save, and these objects will be saved because of our write objects to Lua that we did in the world earlier. All of these objects will be now saved in that objects.lua folder that's in our folder structure. When we copy and paste that, that'll effectively tell the game, this is a town zone, these are forest zones, this is a deep forest, etc., etc., etc. This is basically what's going to allow players to be able to forage. If these zones are not added in the game, players will not be able to forage in these areas. They can turn on foraging, but for the most part, nothing will happen. Now, you can do that on purpose. Like if you want like certain areas to be like, who cares? It's a park or whatever. Like here, this is a blank lot. You don't want anything to happen. By the way, we can go select and move objects. Select this object and delete it. Remove object. I had to right click and delete it. And you're like, I want nothing to be here because it's an empty lot or whatever. If you don't put any foraging zones in there, then nothing will appear. I can simply select forest. Notice the group object is selected. And we can go ahead and make multiple squares. Or, of course, we could have selected the polygon tool and then simply created an L-shape object. Up to you how you want to do it. It doesn't really matter. As long as, the things that you want to cover with the town zone so that town zones are what allow loot to respawn inside of buildings, right? If you don't wrap a building inside of a town zone, it won't respawn. If you want like random shed in the middle of nowhere, but it's not covered by a type of zone, then it will not have respawning abilities. So it is important for us to be able to create these zones so that our players enjoy the functionalities that they're used to and that they like doing. Some people like foraging. I know my best friend likes that. So I always make sure I add these foraging zones for him. It was one of the last things that I did when I first created a map, but now, per the guide, right, it is actually one of the first things that I do after I create some buildings and all of that good stuff. Now, this, of course, is assuming, this video is assuming that you on your own have already created a bunch of buildings, you're already happy with your map, you're basically near the end of being able to be done with this map mod. For the sake of, this video series, I'm not going to create 19 buildings, I'm not going to make a whole map mod because, this is just for example. You can take all the time to do that with what you will. But these are basically the foraging zones, and that's going to be taken care of. If you would like more details, again, as I mentioned, this is the one-stop shop tile tile mapping. This is effectively what talks about this. Before, when this mod was made, you used to need to type these kinds of zones inside of your code. You don't need to do that because the tools have been updated. But in essence, right here is the selection, right? You create object, and then you're going to go ahead and see the level 0 group object, and then you get to choose. So only buildings that are within town zone, trailer park, or farm zones will be allowed to respawn loot. This is where I'm getting that information, right? From the developers themselves. Great. So the next thing we're going to talk about is vehicle zones. Chun-chun-chun. And we'll talk about that one in the next video so that it doesn't become super long. All right. We'll see you soon. Talk to you later. Have fun with those foraging zones. Bye-bye.